Hello, and welcome to another special episode of Super English Talks. I'm really happy you're here today. Maybe you're listening on your way to work, while walking outside, or maybe you're at home relaxing with a cup of tea. Wherever you are, thank you for choosing to spend this time with me. In today's episode, we're going to talk about something very important. It's not only important for your English learning, but also for your whole life. The topic is self-love. Now, when you hear the word self-love, you might think it's just about saying positive quotes, buying yourself nice things, or taking bubble baths. Those can be part of it, but self-love is much deeper than that. Self-love is not just about treating yourself from time to time. It's about the way you speak to yourself, the way you think about yourself, and the way you take care of your emotions, especially when life feels difficult. And let's be honest, life is not always easy. It's often busy, stressful, and full of challenges. We live in a world where there is pressure everywhere. We are told to be productive, to look good, to succeed, to be active all the time. Social media, school, family, work, these things can make us feel like we always have to keep up. But in the middle of all this noise, how often do we stop and ask ourselves, how am I really doing? Am I being kind to myself? That is exactly where self-love becomes important. Self-love does not mean you think you are better than other people. It's not selfish. It simply means you recognize your value as a human being. It means you accept that you don't have to be perfect to deserve love and care. It means treating yourself the way you would treat someone you truly care about. So, why are we talking about this in an English podcast? Because here at Super English Talks, I don't just want you to practice vocabulary and listening skills. I also want to help you grow in confidence, not just in English, but in the way you think, speak, and live your life. This episode isn't only about learning new words. It's about learning how to be gentle with yourself, how to speak to yourself with kindness, the same way you would speak to a close friend who is struggling. As we go through this episode, I'll use natural, everyday English, the kind people really use in conversation. I'll also ask you some reflective questions. You can pause the episode anytime, think about your answers, or even write them down in a journal if you like. Remember, there's no need to rush. The goal is not to finish quickly. The goal is to grow, both in your English and in your personal life. So, let's begin with a simple but powerful question. What is self-love? Self-love is a phrase we hear often, but many people are not sure what it really means. Sometimes it even feels uncomfortable. Maybe you were taught that thinking about yourself first is selfish. Maybe you were told that you should always put others before yourself. But let's look at self-love more clearly, not just as a word, but as a way of living. Self-love means treating yourself with the same respect, kindness, and care that you would give to someone very close to you. It means remembering that you are human, and like all humans, you make mistakes. But even with mistakes, you still deserve understanding and compassion. It also means knowing your worth, not because of your job or your looks or your achievements or the number of followers you have online. Your worth is not connected to those things. You are worthy simply because you exist. You are already enough, just as you are right now. Now, let's talk about something very important, what self-love is not. Many people get the wrong idea about self-love. They think it means being arrogant, selfish, or believing you're better than other people. But that's not what self-love is at all. Self-love is not about ignoring others. It's not about always putting yourself first in a way that hurts the people around you. And it's definitely not about saying, I'm perfect and I don't need to change. In fact, true self-love is the opposite of that. Real self-love means being honest with yourself admitting that you do have weaknesses or flaws, and still choosing to treat yourself with patience and kindness as you grow. Think about this example. Imagine you're on an airplane. Before the plane takes off, the flight attendant gives instructions. They always say, in case of an emergency, put on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. Why do they say that? Because if you don't take care of yourself first, you won't have the strength to help anyone else. That's what self-love is like. When you care for yourself, you build the energy, balance, and strength you need to care for others and face the challenges of life. Another big misunderstanding is the idea that self-love means feeling good all the time or always being happy with everything about yourself. But real self-love doesn't mean pretending life is perfect. It doesn't mean ignoring your problems or covering up your struggles with fake smiles. Instead, self-love is about accepting your whole self, the good, the bad, and everything in between. It's about being able to say, yes, I have weaknesses. Yes, I'm still learning. And then still treating yourself with respect. When you practice self-love, you don't use your struggles as a reason to hate yourself. Instead, you use them as a chance to grow with compassion and patience. Here's another image to help you understand. Imagine your mind is like a garden. If you never water the plants, if you only look at the weeds, or if you speak negatively to the soil every single day, nothing beautiful will grow. But if you give the garden sunlight, if you gently pull out the weeds, and if you speak words of encouragement, even when the flowers are still very small, then, little by little, the garden will begin to flourish. That's exactly what happens with your inner world. Self-love is like watering your own garden. The more kindness and care you give yourself, the stronger and more beautiful your inner life becomes. Some people also confuse self-love with luxury or comfort. They think it's only about taking long baths, buying new clothes, or going on expensive trips. Of course, treating yourself can be nice and even healthy. But the deeper part of self-love is not about material things. It's about the way you treat yourself when you fail. It's about giving yourself rest when you feel exhausted. It's about refusing to compare yourself to others and instead understanding that your journey is unique. Here's something very important to remember. Self-love is not a one-time thing. It's not like buying a gift for yourself once and then you're done. Self-love is a daily practice. Think of it like brushing your teeth or drinking water. You don't do it once and stop forever. You do it every day. In the same way, self-love shows up in the small choices you make daily. How do you react when you make a mistake? How do you treat your body? What kind of words do you use when you talk to yourself in your mind? These small, private moments shape your relationship with yourself more than any big action ever could. So, as we move forward in this episode, I want you to carry this with you. Self-love is not a luxury. It's a foundation. Just like a house needs a strong base to stand tall, you need self-love to live a healthy, meaningful, and balanced life. And here's the good news. You don't have to be perfect at it. You don't have to master it overnight. You just have to begin. So, let me leave you with a question to reflect on. When was the last time you were truly kind to yourself? Not because you earned it, not because you achieved something, but simply because you exist. Think about that for a moment, because that is where real self-love begins. Why does self-love feel so hard sometimes? Now, if self-love is so important, and if we all agree it matters, why does it feel so difficult to actually practice? That's a really good question. Most people want to feel confident. Most people want to feel calm inside, to feel kind toward themselves, and to carry a sense of peace in their daily life. But often, something gets in the way. And usually, it's not just one thing. It's a mix of thoughts, habits, and life experiences that make self-love feel complicated or even impossible at times. 1. The voice of self-doubt. One of the biggest reasons self-love feels hard is self-doubt. That little voice inside your head that whispers, "You're not good enough. You'll probably fail. Don't even try." Have you heard that voice before? Maybe you hear it every day. It's quiet, but it's powerful. Over time, it becomes so normal, like background music playing in your mind, that you barely notice it. But here's the truth. Just because the voice is familiar doesn't mean it's true. Self-doubt usually comes from fear. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, or even fear of what might happen if you actually succeed. 2. Negative self-talk. Along with self-doubt comes something called negative self-talk. These are the harsh messages we say to ourselves, often without even realizing it. I'll never be fluent in English. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old to change. Would you ever say those things to a close friend? Probably not. And yet, many of us repeat them to ourselves all the time. Negative self-talk is like planting weeds in your mind. The more you repeat those words, the stronger they grow. And the stronger they grow, the harder it is to believe anything positive about yourself. 3. Past experiences. Another reason self-love feels hard is because of past experiences. Maybe someone important in your life, a parent, a teacher, a partner, made you feel unworthy. Maybe they criticized you a lot. Maybe they expected too much from you. Maybe they made you believe you had to earn love by being perfect or by always putting others first. Even if those people are no longer in your life, their voices can still live inside your head. That old pain, that emotional baggage, can stay with us for years and quietly shape the way we see ourselves. 4. Society and outside pressure. And then there's society, the world around us. We live in a culture that constantly sends us the message that we're not enough. Advertisements show us the perfect body. Social media shows us the perfect life. Success is measured in money, beauty, likes, or status. If we don't match those images, we start to believe that we're failing. But here's something important to ask yourself. You should be doing something useful. Or maybe you did something kind for yourself, like saying no to someone, but then felt bad afterward. That guilt doesn't come from nowhere. It usually comes from the belief that we must always be productive, always helpful, and never put ourselves first. But here's the truth. Rest is not laziness. Setting boundaries is not rude. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. These are all acts of self-respect. And self-respect is a key part of self-love. So if you've ever wondered why self-love feels so hard, now you know. It's not just you. It's the mix of inner voices, past experiences, cultural pressures, and daily habits that make it challenging. But here's the good news. If these things were learned, they can also be unlearned. And that's exactly what we'll explore together. Why self-love feels unfamiliar. It's also important to understand that self-love isn't something most of us were taught when we were growing up. In many families and cultures, the focus is on things like discipline, responsibility, and sacrifice. And let's be clear, those values are not bad. In fact, they can be very good when used in the right way. They help us work hard, stay strong, and support the people we care about. But here's the problem. When discipline and responsibility are the only focus, there is often no space for softness or self-compassion. Maybe you learned how to be strong. Maybe you learned how to care for others. Maybe you learned how to work hard every single day. But no one ever showed you how to care for yourself. And now, as an adult, when you try to practice self-love, it feels strange. It feels uncomfortable. It feels almost unnatural. And you know what? That's completely okay. Self-love is like learning a new language. At first, it feels awkward. You don't know the words, you don't feel confident, and you're scared of making mistakes. But with time and patience, you start to get better. You start to feel more comfortable. The good news is this: just because self-love feels hard doesn't mean it's impossible. Difficult doesn't mean wrong. It just means it's new. And new things are often a little scary at the beginning. But here's the key: growth always starts with awareness. When you begin to notice the self-doubt, when you hear the negative self-talk, when you feel the pressure to be perfect, that's actually the first step. Because once you notice it, you have a choice. You can challenge it. You can change the story. So, here's a simple practice for you. The next time you catch yourself being harsh or critical toward yourself, stop and ask, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, then you already know what to do. Change the message. Be on your own side. This is what self-love looks like in action. And even though this journey isn't easy, it's one of the most important journeys you'll ever take, not only for your English learning, but for your entire life. The inner critic versus the inner coach. Let's pause here and talk about something very real, something we all experience, even if we don't always notice it: the voice inside our head. Sometimes this voice is helpful. It reminds us to stay focused. It pushes us to prepare. It helps us stay motivated. But other times, this same voice can become our worst enemy. That's when it turns into the inner critic. And the inner critic can be one of the biggest barriers to self-love. The inner critic is the voice that says things like, "You're not good enough. You always mess things up. Why even try? You'll just fail again." This voice often shows up when we feel nervous, when we make a mistake, or when we compare ourselves to others. The more we listen to it, the more powerful it becomes. And here's the tricky part: the inner critic can sound very logical, almost convincing. But in reality, all it does is tear us down. It focuses only on our weaknesses. It brings back every mistake we've ever made. Sometimes, it even repeats the negative words we once heard from others: a teacher who said we weren't smart enough, or a parent who told us we should always do better. Let me give you an example. Imagine you've just spoken English in front of a group for the first time. Maybe you made a few mistakes. Maybe you forgot a word or mispronounced something. Your inner critic might jump in and say, "See? You sounded stupid. Everyone was judging you. You should have just stayed quiet." How do you feel when you hear that? Embarrassed? Ashamed? Maybe you even feel like giving up. But ask yourself, is this voice actually helpful? Does it make you stronger? Does it help you learn? Usually the answer is no. Now, let's imagine a different voice, the voice of your inner coach. This voice doesn't pretend that everything is perfect. It doesn't lie to you or ignore your mistakes, but it speaks with kindness, support, and honesty. Instead of saying, "You sounded stupid," your inner coach might say, "Yes, you made a mistake, but that's part of learning. You are brave to speak in front of others. Next time, you'll do even better because you're practicing. I'm proud of you for trying." Do you feel the difference? The inner critic tears you down, but the inner coach lifts you up. Both voices are inside you. The question is, which one will you choose to listen to? The inner coach versus the inner critic. Your inner coach might sound like this: "Okay, you made a few mistakes, but that's normal. You were brave to try. You're learning, and next time will be better." Notice how this voice focuses on progress, not perfection. It doesn't deny that mistakes happened, but it doesn't make you feel ashamed either. Instead, it encourages you to keep moving forward, step by step. The difference between the inner critic and the inner coach is huge. The inner critic holds you back. The inner coach helps you grow. The inner critic is built on fear. The inner coach is built on self-respect and care. Here's the truth. Both voices exist inside every one of us. You can't completely erase the inner critic, and maybe you don't need to. But you can choose which voice you listen to more often. A personal story. Let me share a quick story from my own life. A few years ago, when I first started creating podcast episodes like this one, I felt so unsure of myself. My inner critic was very loud. It kept saying things like, "Your voice doesn't sound good enough. Your English isn't perfect. Who's even going to listen to you?" And honestly, those thoughts made me want to give up before I even began. But then I reminded myself to turn up the volume on my inner coach. That voice said, "You're not doing this to be perfect. You're doing this to help people. You're learning as you go. And even if your message only reaches one person, that person might really need it." That small shift in mindset helped me keep going. And here I am, still learning, still growing, still showing up for you. So remember, you don't need to completely silence your inner critic. That may not be possible, but you can learn to recognize it and not believe everything it says. When that harsh voice shows up, pause and ask yourself, is this voice helping me or hurting me? If it's hurting you, then it's time to turn its volume down and turn up the voice of your inner coach instead. How to build your inner coach. One powerful way to strengthen your inner coach is to speak to yourself the way you'd speak to a close friend. Imagine someone you care about is going through the same struggle you are. Would you call them a failure? Or would you remind them of their courage, their effort, and their progress? Of course, you'd support them. So, why not offer the same support to yourself? This change won't happen overnight. It takes practice and consistency. But little by little, your inner coach will grow louder, stronger, and more natural. And when that happens, self-love becomes easier because you're no longer fighting against yourself. Instead, you're standing with yourself. So the next time you feel afraid, embarrassed, or not good enough, pause and ask, who's speaking right now? My critic or my coach? And then choose the voice that leads you forward, not the one that keeps you stuck. Small acts of self-love. Let's start with one of the most powerful and maybe one of the hardest examples of self-love, saying no. For many people, especially those who want to be kind and helpful, saying no feels very uncomfortable. We don't want to hurt someone's feelings. We don't want others to think we are rude or selfish. So we often say yes, even when we are tired, even when we don't have the energy. But here's the truth. Sometimes saying no is the most loving thing you can do. Not just for yourself, but also for the people around you. Because when you take care of yourself first, you actually show up stronger, kinder, and more present for others later. For example, imagine this. It's Friday night, and you've had a long, exhausting week. You're dreaming about resting, maybe sleeping early, maybe just being quiet. But then a friend invites you out. Now, of course, you want to see your friend. But deep down, you know your body and mind need rest. Self-love in this moment might sound like this. I'd love to see you, but I really need to rest tonight. Let's meet another day when I have more energy. That one sentence can protect your peace, your health, and your happiness. That's self-love in action. Another small but powerful act of self-love is resting without guilt. So many of us grow up believing we should always be busy, always doing something, always producing. If we sit down, if we nap, if we simply do nothing for a little while, we feel guilty, like we are wasting time. But you are not a machine. You are a human being.
And humans need rest.
Rest is not laziness. Rest is a basic need. Think about your phone for a moment. When the battery is low, do you feel guilty about charging it? Of course not. You just plug it in because you know it cannot work without energy. Your body and mind are the same. They need to recharge. Taking a nap, going for a quiet walk, stretching, or even just sitting in silence for a few minutes, these are not signs of weakness. They are signs of wisdom. They are ways of saying, I respect my limits. I want to take care of myself. Here's another one. Setting boundaries. A boundary is simply a line that protects your time, your space, and your emotions. It's not about being mean. It's about being clear. For example, let's say someone at work always talks to you during your lunch break. You notice that every time this happens, you feel stressed because you don't get the break you need. A simple boundary could sound like this. I'm happy to talk later, but I need to take my full break today to recharge. That's not rude. That's self-love. Boundaries tell other people how you want to be treated, and they remind you that your well-being matters too. Self-love also looks like being proud of your progress, even if it's small. Maybe you're learning English. Today, you listened to a podcast and understood almost everything without pausing. That's progress. Maybe you spoke up in a meeting, even though you were nervous. That's courage. Maybe you finally started a project you've been afraid of. That's a victory. These little wins matter, but often we skip over them because they don't seem big enough. We wait for something huge before we celebrate. But here's the truth. Progress is progress. Every step counts. And self-love means noticing and celebrating those steps, even if no one else sees them. And of course, self-love can also show up in very ordinary choices. Preparing a healthy meal for yourself, going to bed on time, drinking enough water, taking a short break from social media when it starts to make you feel bad about your life. These are not dramatic things. They are not expensive, but they send a very important message. I care about myself. And when you repeat them often, they build a stronger, kinder relationship with yourself. Finally, let's not forget about the way we speak to ourselves. Even when no one else is listening, the words in your mind matter. Choosing kind and supportive words like, I'm doing my best. It's okay to make mistakes. I'm learning. I'm improving. These words are also acts of self-love. You don't even have to say them out loud. Just hearing them in your thoughts can change your mood, your confidence, and your attitude. So let me ask you, what's one thing you could do today to take care of yourself? Not just physically, but emotionally too. Maybe it's turning off your phone an hour earlier tonight. Maybe it's finally starting that book you've wanted to read. Maybe it's as simple as sitting down, closing your eyes, and taking 5 deep breaths in a quiet room. Whatever it is, keep this in mind. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Self-love doesn't grow from one big action. It grows from many small actions repeated over time. The more you practice these small acts, the more natural they will feel. And with each one, you remind yourself of something very powerful. I matter too. The role of mindset and consistency. I am worth care. I am worth kindness. I am worth love. Let's keep moving forward, step by step. The fact that you are here, listening, reflecting, and learning how to take better care of yourself, that's already a big act of self-love. So far, we've talked about what self-love means and how we can practice it in small, everyday ways. But now let's go a little deeper. Let's talk about something that shapes everything else: Your mindset. What is mindset? Your mindset is simply the way you think about yourself, your abilities, and your life. It's like the lens in a pair of glasses. You wear it all the time, and it colors how you see the world and how you see yourself. Psychologists often talk about two main types of mindset: the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, you believe your qualities like your intelligence, your talents, or your personality are things you're born with and can't really change. For example, someone with a fixed mindset might say, "I'm just bad at languages. I always fail at relationships. That's just who I am." This way of thinking makes self-love really hard.
Why?
Because if you believe you can't grow or change, then every mistake feels like proof that you're not good enough. Instead of helping yourself, you end up judging yourself. And judgment doesn't heal, it only hurts. Growth mindset. On the other hand, if you have a growth mindset, you believe that you can learn, improve, and grow over time, even if it takes effort. With this mindset, you don't see failure as the end of the story. You see it as part of the story. You see mistakes as lessons, not as proof that you're broken. Someone with a growth mindset might say, "I didn't do well this time, but I can learn and improve. This is hard, but I'm getting stronger every day." This mindset doesn't pretend that problems don't exist. It doesn't say everything is easy, but it does leave space for compassion, for patience, and for change. And when you believe you can grow, you naturally treat yourself with more kindness. You give yourself the same patience you'd give a child who is learning something new. That patience is a form of self-love. A question for you. So let me ask you, the last time you made a mistake, what did you say to yourself? Did you think, "I'm hopeless"? Or did you think, "I'll try again"? Your answer says a lot about your mindset. It shows how much space you give yourself to grow with love instead of crushing yourself with judgment. The power of consistency. Now, let's talk about another big part of self-love: consistency. So many people give up on self-care or personal growth because they think they're not doing it perfectly. But the truth is, self-love is not about perfection. It's about repetition. It's about showing up for yourself again and again. Consistency simply means this: doing something regularly, even if it's not perfect, even if it's small. For example, let's say you decide to practice English every day for just 10 minutes. Some days, you might feel confident and everything flows easily. Other days, you might be tired, distracted, or unmotivated. Maybe you don't do it perfectly, but as long as you keep showing up, day after day, something powerful happens, you grow. It's the same with self-love. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment to take care of yourself. You don't need to wait until you have a whole free day, or until you feel strong, or until you have everything figured out. You just need to take one small step, again and again. Maybe that small step is resting when you're tired. Maybe it's speaking to yourself kindly after a mistake. Maybe it's drinking a glass of water instead of skipping it. None of these things look dramatic, but when you repeat them, they add up. Over time, they build a steady foundation of self-respect. That's what consistency does. It teaches your mind and body that you can trust yourself, that you will show up for yourself not just once, not just when it's easy, but again and again. Progress, not perfection. Maybe you skip a day. Maybe you miss a practice, or you forget to do that little thing you promised yourself. Now, a perfectionist mindset would jump in and say, "See? You failed. You'll never get it right. Just give up." But a self-loving mindset, a consistent mindset, would say something very different. It would say, okay, I missed today. That's fine. I'll try again tomorrow. See the difference? One mindset tears you down. The other lifts you up gently, patiently, with kindness. And that brings us to one of the most helpful phrases you can carry with you: progress, not perfection. Perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist. It's just an idea in our heads, a moving target that we can never actually reach. If you chase perfection, you'll always feel behind, always feel like you're failing. But progress? Progress is real. Progress is every small step you take forward. Progress is when you understand one more English sentence than you did yesterday. Progress is when you pause before being hard on yourself and choose kinder words instead. When you focus on progress, you start to notice your growth. You start to feel proud, not just of the final result, but of the journey itself. Self-love grows when we keep showing up for ourselves, not only when things are easy, but also when life is messy, when we feel tired, when mistakes happen. It's not about getting it right every time. It's about staying with yourself, choosing to keep going, even when it's hard. So let me ask you, what's your mindset right now? Do you allow yourself space to grow, or do you judge yourself every time something goes wrong? And what's one small thing you could do regularly, maybe once a week, maybe even once a day, that would support your progress? Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's taking 5 minutes of quiet time. Maybe it's continuing to listen to this podcast as part of your growth. Whatever it is, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Progress, not perfection. That's how we grow. That's how we change. That's how we learn to love ourselves. One step, one choice, one kind word at a time. Self-love in hard times. But now let's be real. Life isn't always easy. We all go through hard times. Maybe you fail at something you really cared about. Maybe someone you love hurts you. Maybe you just feel lost, tired, or stuck. And let's be honest, those are the moments when self-love feels the hardest. It's easy to be kind to yourself when everything is going well. But what about when everything feels like it's falling apart? When things go wrong, most of us hear that loud, critical voice in our heads. You messed up. You're such a failure. Why can't you just be better? That's the inner critic we talked about earlier. And when we're already in pain, that voice makes it worse. Imagine falling down and then someone kicking you while you're on the ground. That's what we often do to ourselves emotionally. We beat ourselves up instead of helping ourselves heal. But self-love in hard times is about doing the opposite. It's about choosing compassion instead of criticism. It's about saying to yourself, okay, this is hard, but I'm doing my best. Or, it's normal to make mistakes. I'm human. Think about it this way. If your best friend was struggling, would you yell at them and call them weak? Of course not. You'd probably sit next to them, put a hand on their shoulder and say, I'm here for you. It's okay. You'll get through this. So, why don't we talk to ourselves that way? Have you ever noticed that some people seem stronger after a failure or a setback? It's not because they never feel sad. It's not because they're tougher than everyone else. It's because they don't stay in the pain forever. They let themselves feel it. They cry, they rest, they reflect, and then slowly they stand up again. That's real strength. And it always begins with gentleness, with treating yourself kindly when life doesn't go as planned. Let me share a short story. A few years ago, I applied for a job I really wanted. I worked hard on my application. I went through several interviews. I believed I was the perfect fit. But in the end, they chose someone else. I was crushed. For days, I kept thinking, maybe I'm just not good enough. What if I never succeed? It was painful. But then a quieter voice inside whispered, maybe this wasn't the right job. Maybe something better is waiting. That small, hopeful voice didn't erase the disappointment right away, but it gave me just enough courage to keep moving forward. How to practice more self-love. So, now that we've explored what self-love is and why it matters, you might be wondering, okay, but how do I actually start? How can I bring self-love into my everyday life? The good news is you don't need big, dramatic changes. You don't need to suddenly transform who you are. You can begin with small, gentle steps. Think of self-love not as a final destination, but as a daily practice. It's not something you achieve once and then check off your list. It's something you choose again and again, especially in the moments when life feels heavy. Step 1. Listen to your inner voice. One of the most powerful ways to practice self-love is by noticing how you speak to yourself. Do you encourage yourself, or do you criticize yourself? Are you gentle, or are you harsh? Many people are shocked when they finally pay attention to their inner voice. They realize they say things to themselves they would never say to a friend. So, here's a simple practice. The next time you make a mistake, pause and ask yourself, would I talk to a close friend this way? If the answer is no, then it's time to change that voice. Speak to yourself with the same kindness, care, and respect you would give to someone you truly love. That shift, even in small moments, is a powerful act of self-love. Step 2. Journaling for clarity. Another helpful practice is journaling. Writing in a journal isn't about being a perfect writer. It's about being honest with yourself. When you write, you give your thoughts and feelings a safe place to land. You start to understand yourself better. You see your strengths more clearly, and you notice patterns in the way you think and feel. You don't need to write pages and pages. Even 5 minutes can make a difference. You might write, what went well today? Something you're proud of, something you struggled with, and what you learned. Over time, journaling becomes like a mirror that shows you not just your struggles, but also your growth. Step 3. Small daily acts of care. Self-love also lives in the little things you do for yourself each day. Drinking enough water, taking a short walk, resting when you're tired, saying no when you need to protect your energy. These may seem simple, but they're powerful because they send yourself a message. I matter. My needs are important. Step 4. Celebrate progress, not perfection. And remember what we talked about earlier. Progress, not perfection. Every time you choose kindness instead of criticism, that's progress. Every time you pause instead of rushing, that's progress. Every time you try again after falling, that's progress. Self-love grows through these small choices. Over time, they build into something strong, something steady, something that feels like home inside you. Even writing just 1 or 2 sentences each day in a journal can make a real difference over time. It gives your emotions space to breathe. It helps you see yourself more clearly, and it reminds you to treat yourself with kindness. Creating space for rest is also deeply important. We live in a world that often celebrates busyness, achievement, and productivity. But your worth is not measured by how much you do. Rest is not laziness. Rest is necessary. When you give yourself permission to rest, whether that means getting enough sleep, taking a short break during the day, going for a quiet walk, or simply sitting in silence, you're sending yourself a message. I matter. My well-being is important. That is self-love in action. Another simple yet powerful practice is learning to say no. Many of us feel pressure to say yes to everything, to help everyone, to work late, to attend every invitation. But always saying yes can leave us tired, stressed, and even resentful. Saying no is not selfish. It's a way of protecting your energy and your peace. It doesn't mean you don't care about others. It means you care about yourself, too. And that balance is not only healthy, it's necessary. You can also try a very small grounding practice. Place your hand gently on your heart, close your eyes, and take one deep breath. This simple act signals to your body and your mind that you are safe, supported, and cared for. It may sound small, but in moments of stress, it can bring calm and connection back to yourself. And don't forget about gratitude. Gratitude is like a light that shifts your focus from what's missing to what's already here. Each day, take a few seconds to notice something good. Your health, the smile of a friend, the taste of your favorite food, the beauty of the sky, or even the quiet of the morning. Gratitude doesn't erase challenges, but it softens them. It reminds you of the good that already surrounds you. That shift itself is a form of self-love. The truth is, you don't have to do all of these practices at once. Start with one. Choose the one that feels easiest or most natural to you. Practice it, and let it become part of your life. Then, when you're ready, add another. Self-love is not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about being real. It's about being gentle with yourself, even when things feel messy or uncertain. And remember, this journey takes time. Growth always does. Be patient with yourself. Be consistent in small ways. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are learning. You are growing. And that alone is a beautiful act of love. So, ask yourself today, what's one small thing I can do to be kind to myself? That one step is enough to begin. Final reflection. As we come to the end of this episode, let's pause for a moment and take in everything we've shared together. We've explored what self-love really means. I hope you've seen that self-love isn't about being perfect or never making mistakes or having everything figured out. It's something you practice again and again, just like learning a new language or playing a musical instrument. Some days you'll feel strong and confident. Other days you might feel tired or doubtful. Both are okay. What matters is that you keep showing up for yourself, little by little. Every step you take, every kind word you whisper to yourself, every moment you choose compassion over criticism, that's progress. That's love. And that's enough. So today, remind yourself gently, I am worth care. I am worth kindness. I am worth love. Because you truly are. Before we finish today, I want to leave you with a small challenge for the week ahead. It's very simple, but it can have a powerful effect. I invite you to notice your inner voice. Pay attention to how you speak to yourself. When you catch yourself being critical or hard on yourself, pause for a moment and ask, is this voice helping me or is it hurting me? Then, gently try to replace that critical voice with a kinder one. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be as simple as saying to yourself, I'm doing my best, or it's okay to make mistakes. I'm still learning. Try this practice for just a few days and see how it feels. You may be surprised by how much a small shift in your inner dialogue can change your mood, your confidence, and the way you move through your day. If you found this episode helpful or inspiring, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with a friend or with someone who might benefit from a little more kindness in their life. Talking about self-love and compassion helps all of us feel less alone, and your share might give someone else exactly the encouragement they need. And if you have any thoughts, stories, or experiences you'd like to share with me, I'd truly love to hear from you. Your journey matters, and your words may inspire others as much as they inspire me. Thank you so much for spending this time with me here on Super English Talks. I hope you're leaving today's episode feeling a little lighter, a little stronger, and a little more ready to treat yourself with the care you deserve. Please remember this: you are already enough, just as you are, right here and right now. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't need to wait until you're perfect, because you are worthy of love, kindness, and respect today. So take good care of yourself this week. Keep practicing patience, compassion, and love, especially with the person you see in the mirror each day. I'll be right here with you on this journey, cheering you on, and I can't wait to share more with you in the next episode. Until next time, stay well, stay gentle, and never forget, you are enough.